this guide, we'll go over all of the actions the Dragoon learns from level 50 to 90 in order. We'll go over how each action is meant to be used, and when applicable, the recommended way to use it. We will also summarize changes to the rotation at level 60, 70 and 80. In the summary, we'll take time to outline both an opener and how it leads into the general rotation, and also briefly go over stat priorities. I will assume you have already seen my guide, which covers the first 50 levels, and I will also assume that you are acquainted with abbreviations like GCD, OGCD and weaving. If either of these aspects are not familiar to you, please view the corresponding videos in the top right corner. Before we go through new actions, let's briefly cover changes introduced with Endwalker. Piercing Talon has slightly more range and no longer cancels your current combo, so you can freely fill with this action at times where you cannot be in melee range for any reason. The roll action Feint now also reduces magic damage, so you can use it almost at any time and always have some benefit. Lance Charge's cooldown has been reduced to 1 minute, making it easier to line up with other cooldowns. Now then, at level 52, you learn the ability Battle Litany. At the start of a fight, weave Battle Litany alongside Lance Charge right after Disembowel. Assuming you manage to use Lance Charge on cooldown, then every second one of them will automatically line up to again be used alongside Battle Litany every 2 minutes, which is the optimal way to use them both. At level 54, Jump and Spine Shatter Dive both get a potency boost. This does not change your rotation. At level 56, you learn the weapon skill Fang and Claw, which functions as a combo finisher after full thrust. The main change this causes is that instead of doing 3 full thrust combos after 1 chaos thrust combo, you should only do 2 full thrust combos, including Fang and Claw. For 2 targets specifically, you do 2 chaos thrust combos and 1 full thrust combo. Fang and Claw does additional damage from the side or flank of an enemy. This means the part of the targeting reticle that is not the open part and not near the front-facing arrow. Life Surge should still be used on full thrust. At level 58, you learn the weapon skill Wheeling Thrust, which, similar to Fang and Claw, functions as a combo finisher after Chaos Thrust. In the exact same way, you should always follow up Chaos Thrust with Wheeling Thrust, which also does extra damage from the rear of an enemy, just like Chaos Thrust. At level 60, you learn the ability Gargoyle, which does great damage in a line in front of you. At the start of a fight, you should delay this ability to after Lance Charge and Battle Litany, but before Jump. After that, Gargoyle should be used on cooldown as much as possible. On AoE, make sure to line yourself up so you hit as many enemies as possible. Since level 50, your opener has been adjusted by adding Gargoyle and Battle Litany to it. At the same time, your GCD rotation has been more concentrated by introducing Fang and Claw and Wheeling Thrust. At this level, open with True Thrust, Disembowel and then weave Lance Charge and Battle Litany. Then use Chaos Thrust, weaving Gargoyle. Then do Wheeling Thrust, weaving Jump, True Thrust weaving Dragonfire Dive, Warble Thrust weaving Life Surge followed by Full Thrust weaving Spine Shatter Dive, and then finishing with Fang and Claw. Make sure to use your OGCD options as often as possible. Most of them will align with each other, especially important being the damage boosting cooldowns, if you use them as soon as they are available. At level 62, you learn the weapon skill Sonic Thrust, a combo follow-up from Doomspike. Sonic Thrust additionally applies the damage buff from Disembowel, and so you can completely forgo using Disembowel on AoE now, AoE meaning 3 or more targets. On AoE, use Life Surge on Sonic Thrust. At level 64, you get the trait Lance Mastery. This trait makes Wheeling Thrust and Fang and Claw combo into each other, at least once per combo sequence. When using Wheeling Thrust after Fang and Claw, or vice versa, they do an extra 100 potency. This adjusts your general rotation to alternate between the Chaos Thrust combo, followed by Wheeling Thrust and Fang and Claw, and then the Full Thrust combo, followed by Fang and Claw and Wheeling Thrust. Additionally, when the positional is done correctly, this Step 5 combo finisher version of Wheeling Thrust or Fang and Claw does the same damage as Full Thrust, and so function as an alternative option to use Life Surge on. At level 66, you learn the ability Dragon Sight, which boosts your damage as well as one other player of your choice's damage. Always make sure to target another party member when using Dragonsight to not waste this extra damage. Many Dragoons find this more easily done using either a mouse over macro or a focus target macro. The mouse over option lets you point your cursor at whoever you want to share with, while focus target requires you to make use of the focus target feature, and then hope that player is alive every time you intend to use Dragonsight. This adjusts your opener some more. Start with True Thrust and Disembowel, weave Lance Charge and Dragonsight, then Chaos Thrust and weave Battle Litany. Then Wheeling Thrust, weaving Geisterghoul and Life Surge. Then do Fang and Claw alongside Jump. True Thrust alongside Dragonfire Dive, then Vorpal Thrust alongside Spine Shatter Dive. Then finish the combo and circle back to the base rotation and use cooldowns as they come up. At level 68, you learn the ability Mirage Dive. Jump is also upgraded to Grand Dive Ready. While Dive Ready, you can use Mirage Dive as an OGCD attack. The only limitation is that Dive Ready only lasts 15 seconds, so it is crucial that you make time to use Mirage Dive in time. In the opener, you should have enough time to use Mirage Dive after the GCD that follows after the Spine Shatter Dive at the end. If this is not the case, make sure to prioritize accordingly. Always make sure to use Mirage Dive at some point after Jump, especially because of the next trait you learn at level 70, which is Life of the Dragon alongside its ability Nastrond. Whenever you use Mirage Dive, you gain a stack of Gaze on your brand new Dragon Gauge. When you have 2 stacks, using Geisterghoul makes you enter Life of the Dragon, which replaces Geisterghoul with Nastrond, a more powerful version with a shorter cooldown. You are in Life of the Dragon for 20 seconds, enabling you to do 2 Nastronds in this time, and you should make sure to do this. Now, this does not actually change your opener at all. In fact, it is intentional that Geisterghoul is lined up to be used before Jump and Mirage Dive. This ensures that Life of the Dragon lines up with all your cooldowns available every minute or 2 minutes in case of Dragonsight and Battle Litany. Try to line it up such that all 3 damage boosting cooldowns are used close enough to Geisterghoul, such that they last for both Nastronds. Since level 60, you have unlocked Life of the Dragon and its Nastrond ability. You also extended your base combos to 5 steps each. Dragonsight is also added as an extra damage boosting cooldown every 2 minutes. And, to help with the Life of the Dragon, Mirage Dive is added as an extra attack after every jump. After every second use of Mirage Dive, using Geisterghoul enables 2 uses of Nastrond within 20 seconds. Ultimately, you would want to plan using Lance Charge, Dragonsight and Battle Litany as they are available, close to Geisterghoul every minute. Take note that it is intentional that the opener uses Geisterghoul first and then Jump and Mirage Dive. This way, Life of the Dragon happens on every minute rather than between every minute. At level 72, you learn the weapon skill Coerthen Torment, which is a combo finisher for your AoE combo. After every Sonic Thrust, you use Coerthen Torment, significantly boosting your damage on 3 or more targets. On AoE, use Life Surge on Coerthen Torment. At level 74, Jump is permanently upgraded to High Jump. This boosts the potency and also even increases the animation speed of the ability. Unfortunately, it still takes too long to resolve to fit a second OGCD alongside it. As such, this does not change your rotation at all. At level 76, the trait Lance Mastery 2 boosts the potencies of your step 1 and 2 combo weapon skills. Additionally, when finishing the step 5 of your combos, you gain the Draconian Fire effect, which turns True Thrust into Radiant Thrust, which does a lot more damage. This is mostly a convoluted way to say that the start of your combos get a potency boost, but this does not change your rotation. At level 78, Life of the Dragon is extended to last 30 seconds instead of 20. This enables you to fit an extra Nastrond in the duration. Since all of your damage boosting cooldowns last 20 seconds or less, there's no way to fit all 3 in them. So while this means you should of course use Nastrond that 3rd time in the 30 seconds, it does not change any other parts of your rotation. In particular, how and when you go about your damage boosting cooldowns. At level 80, you learn the ability Stardiver, which is an attack that is only available once for every Life of the Dragon window. Be aware that Stardiver is a jump and so cannot be weaved alongside other OGCDs. Prioritize using Stardiver right after Nastrond during Life of the Dragon to make sure it hits while your damage boosting cooldowns are still active. Since level 70, your AoE combo got extended with Quirth and Torment. Stardiver and an extra Nastrond was added to every Life of the Dragon window, and the upgrades Lance Mastery 2 and High Jump boosted your potencies in general. For the most part, your opener is unchanged, but the Life of the Dragon part of your rotation got a little busier. At level 82, Quirth and Torment is upgraded to grant Draconian Fire just like finishing a 5-step combo. Additionally, Doom Spike turns into Draconian Fury when you have Draconian Fire. This does not change your rotation at all, but does increase your AoE damage. At level 84, Spine Shatter Dive can store 2 charges. You can now save 1 charge of Spine Shatter Dive to keep for movement. However, due to how well it perfectly lines up with Dragon Sight and Battle Litany's 2-minute cooldowns, you can also save both charges to use in this burst window with all of your damage cooldowns. In your opener, use the second Spine Shatter Dive after the GCD you use Mirage Dive in. You can also choose to save it for mobility reasons. At level 86, Full Thrust and Chaos Thrust are upgraded to Heaven's Thrust and Chaotic Spring, boosting their potencies significantly. This of course means that Heaven's Thrust is higher potency than the step 5 combos, so you may want to focus Life Surge on Heaven's Thrust again. For the opener, delay Life Surge till after Vorpal Thrust and weave it alongside Mirage Dive, placing both Spine Shatter Dives after Heaven's Thrust. This does leave a free OGCD after Geiskagul in the opener. However, at level 88, Life Surge can store 2 charges. Instead of quickly using Life Surge on the first opportunity to combine it with Heaven's Thrust, you can now delay Life Surge in a way that enables you to combine it with Heaven's Thrust during your damage boosting cooldowns. Of course, since Life Surge's cooldown is shorter, you sometimes have an extra one. With a lot of practice, you may be able to use both in a buff window. However, you should preferably use Life Surge on Heaven's Thrust outside of buffs rather than sit on both charges for a while. For your opener, use Life Surge alongside Geiskagul and spend it on your step 5 combo. Yes, this isn't as much damage as using it on Heaven's Thrust, but it is not feasible to fit 2 Heaven's Thrusts in a buff window, and so, using one of the Life Surges on a step 5 combo is better. This also applies if you manage to fit both Life Surges in a burst mid-fight. At level 90, Geiskagul and Nastrond gets a potency boost, but more importantly, your Dragon Gauge is extended with the Firstminds Focus. Whenever you use Radiant Thrust or Draconian Fury, you gain 1 Firstminds Focus, and when you have 2, you can use the new ability Wormwind Thrust. You should use Wormwind Thrust whenever it is available, but in case your damage boosting cooldowns are ready within the next 10 seconds or so, you can delay Wormwind Thrust until just before your next Radiant Thrust or Draconian Fury to line it up with these buffs for extra damage. Due to how you need to finish 2 full 5-step combos to access Wormwind Thrust, it isn't really part of the opener. However, sometimes your raid team may have some long-lasting cooldowns that are still active when you reach it, so you may want to consider using the first Wormwind Thrust immediately when you get it. To round off, let's first talk about an opener, followed by tips on general rotation, including AoE. Then we finish off with a brief talk about stat priorities. The scariest part about playing Dragoon is how perfectly most of their cooldowns line up together alongside Life of the Dragon. Because of this, your ability to perform the opener may very well affect how well you can perform the burst window when all your buttons light up every minute or two. Naturally, this is all a matter of practice, so don't get discouraged if it is difficult at first. Now, on to the opener. Around 3 seconds before combat starts, use sprint and make sure to run into battle alongside the tank. Alternatively, you can face away from the target and use elusive jump to backflip into action. However, it is generally agreed that sprinting in more reliably lands the first GCD on time. Start with True Thrust, and if you intend to use a tincture, a so-called burst potion, this is the time. Then use Disembowel, weaving Lance Charge and Dragon Sight. Chaotic Spring, weaving Battle Litany. Then do Wheeling Thrust, weaving Geiskagul and Life Surge. Then Fang and Claw, weaving High Jump. Radiant Thrust, weaving Dragonfire Dive, and then Vorpal Thrust, weaving Life Surge and Mirage Dive. Then Heaven's Thrust and weave Spine Shatter Dive. Fang and Claw, and in case you don't plan to use it for movement, Spine Shatter Dive again. Then finish with Wheeling Thrust, leading into the general rotation. For single target, Your GCDs are entirely made up of alternating the Chaotic Spring and Heaven's Thrust combos. For 2 targets, you instead do the Chaotic Spring combo while alternating targets. For 3 or more targets, you do the AoE combo repeatedly. Whirlwind Thrust should be used as it becomes available, although if your cooldowns like Lance Charge become ready before you would generate another stack of Firstminds focus, then you can adjust the timing of Whirlwind Thrust around this. Life Surge should be used on Heaven's Thrust for single target, for 2 targets on Fang and Claw, and on AoE on Coerth and Torment. Again, if cooldowns are coming up in time, you can adjust the use of Life Surge around it. You can use 1 Life Surge on either of the step 5 combos on single target to fit 2 Life Surges in the damage cooldowns. The long and the short of it regarding the rest of your cooldowns is to use them all on cooldown. When done appropriately after the opener, Lance Charge automatically lines up with Dragon Sight and Battle Litany every other minute. And as long as Geisterghoul is always cast before High Jump and Mirage Dive, Life of the Dragon will line up with Lance Charge. As long as Life of the Dragon starts with more than 12 or so seconds left on Lance Charge, it is possible to fit 2 Nastronds and Stardiver in it. Dragonfire Dive always lines up with Dragon Sight, and if you choose to keep both Spine Shatter dives for damage, then they will line up with this window too. Keep in mind that all these tips for cooldown usage applies for any number of targets, although on multiple targets, take note that Geisterghoul, Nastrond, Whirlwind Thrust and even the AoE combo all do line AoEs, so position yourself accordingly. Regarding stat priorities, keep in mind that in nearly every single case, item level is more important than having the correct secondary stats. As such, as long as there's strength on the item, take the one with the higher item level. The stat priority after that is the common, critical hit, then determination and direct hit weighed equally, and then skill speed. Critical hit scales better than the competition, and determination and direct hit scales almost perfectly identically. Skill speed is seen as a very weak stat for Dragoons because of the huge amount of OGCD options they have that are all completely unaffected by skill speed. More skill speed exclusively results in more GCDs and Whirlwind Thrusts, which does not stand up against the competing stat options. Having skill speed is not a disaster though, so focus on item level first. Remember that unless you're doing the hardest content in the game, having the perfect stat distribution on your gear isn't that important. That is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or perhaps find something a bit confusing, please leave a comment down below. Fun fact, back in Stormblood, the damage buff from Disembowel was applied by a weapon skill called Heavy Thrust. This had no combo attached to it. The Chaos Thrust combo was also started by a different step 1 combo, Impulse Drive, and Disembowel instead increased piercing damage done, meaning Dragoon, Bard and Machinist. This all meant the 10-step GCD rotation started with Heavy Thrust and was 11 steps instead.